Hello and welcome to Faith and Whatever. You have found yourself at our excellent channel with our favorite topic to discuss, which is religion. When we say that, we really just mean Christianity, because all other religions are not Christianity.
I was wondering what you were going to say there.
That's a pretty bold statement.
Right here at Faith and Whatever, we get down to the truth, and we don't shy away from anything.
That nothing else is Christianity. Only Christianity is Christianity.
Well, I kind of feel like I would never say that we're experts, but I feel like when people are tuning in, wondering why it's called Faith and Whatever, wondering who we are, wondering why we're talking about Christianity, we don't often talk that three of us are pastors. One is a doctorate of immortality.
I haven't gotten it yet.
Okay. He'll soon have a doctorate of immortality from universallifechurch.com. But we really do...
We do not endorse them.
Yeah, no, never mind. No, just scratch that. We really do live in this every day. The three of us work in ministry. Chris has his own missional ministry known as Marion Ranch, where he just has a good opportunity to talk to just different people in different walks of life.
If I could
He does charitable things all the time.
I do charitable things, but I'm not actually a missional business at all.
No, I wasn't saying that you were. I'm just saying that you have an opportunity to talk to different people and
it's a business that does
interact
lots of
with
missionary
people
stuff.
And
No?
Not really.
I know, I'm kidding.
just the idea that you get to talk to people.
I
and
don't
you have a
like to
business.
travel. I get sick real easy.
When I say missional,
I'm just
I mean you having this recording studio to invite people in here to do a great job in recording their sound and be a good person.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not saying Christian music isn't very good, and I don't want to be associated with it,
But you are saying that.
I'm not saying that what you do is.
I'm just teasing.
I'm not what you're saying. What you do is Christian music. I'm saying what you do is interact with people of this world who just want their music recorded, and you're a Christian and you do that really well.
Chris doesn't want you to scare away his clientele.
They don't watch this. Come on. But I just want to let people know that we are no experts in Christianity and faith, but this is something that we deal with all the time.
Technically, we are professionals.
Okay, you're right.
I mean, I'm not saying that we know everything, and I'm certainly not saying you can't disagree with us, but we are professionals.
Yeah,
Poor Garrett, just trying to get into this intro, and we're just
No, I
letting
think
him.
I think this intro is a long time coming. Episode 14, letting people know, and we've mentioned it before that we're up here on the table, or ordained pastors, and are in ministry full time. James is a professor of New Testament.
Yeah, that's the short of it.
Josh is soon to have his master's in theology. Is that right?
Master's in Arts of Religion with the New Testament emphasis.
Once he just finishes his dissertation, and he's running out of time, thesis. And so we are well versed in the different ways that these kinds of things can be talked about and discussed, and want to share that with you and enter into a well-informed discussion on Christianity and how we can interact in the world and how we can better discuss this type of stuff in the world of YouTube and podcast. On that note, James has got a very interesting topic for us to discuss.
Religion topic. So the question today that we're going to take turns answering and sort of discuss our answers is, what can Christians learn from blank? Fill the blank and answer that question. And I'll get us started. So personally, and I don't know, I don't mean to offend anybody, but I would not call the Mormon church traditionally Christian. I think Mormons would call themselves Christian, but from my standpoint, we are two very different things.
They wouldn't call us Christians.
There's mixed Mormon opinion on that.
Yeah, I see that.
They definitely, my understanding for at least some Mormons, that there's a belief in multiple tiers of heaven, and good Christians go to the lowest tier. So that we're not without, some saving grace there.
Well,
So we get
thank
the
you.
basement of heaven.
Right.
Well, I'm surprised they even let us in.
So
Very kind of them. Very Christian of them.
Mormonism is, in my estimation, very divergent than what I would call Christianity. Now, that my point here isn't to criticize Mormons, but it's to actually give them some compliments, which is, I think there's some things that the evangelical, the Orthodox, the mainline Christian churches can learn from Mormons. I've known a lot of Mormons, both just personally, but also in my academics. I've studied alongside many Mormons. I went to certain schools that also had Mormon people who are deep believers of their faith, who are studying various academic topics interesting to them. And I've had the chance to just get to know Mormonism from a certain angle. And one of the things that I very much respect about the Mormon Church is, first of all, something we can learn from them, Christians can learn, is the emphasis on the the essentials, the essential family unit. There's a strong, I mean, obviously in Christianity, we're okay with families. We like families. We do family events in most churches. But in Mormonism, it's part of the job of the Mormon leaders, whether that be the volunteer leaders or the professional leaders, to come alongside, especially fathers and also mothers, and ask them to hold them to certain standards. To say, what activities have you done with your kids this week?
Yeah.
And I don't mean to make them sound militant. I think they're doing a wonderful thing, that their church is seeing to families being enriched, seeing to families spending quality time together and doing things together, asking and holding parents up to a certain standard.
There's a family time or family day built into their faith, right?
Right, very much so. And I'm not saying we need to do exactly as the Mormons do, but I think there's something to be learned there, that maybe part of the design of, let's say, an evangelical church should be the pastor taking a real interest in the formation of the families of those who belong to that congregation. Now, there's a danger there, right? When you have pastors sort of nosing into families, if you have a bad pastor, you might get a bad family formation.
Yeah.
That can happen.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking here in terms of ideals. And I think the ideal is wonderful, that to have Christian leadership paying close attention to family formation, making sure that fathers are being good fathers, mothers are being good mothers, making sure children are doing well and not just thriving but blossoming in that family. And I think that the Mormon Church does a really excellent job of that, as far as I've seen with my own eyes.
I really like that. I think that the Mormons, they're not afraid to be countercultural for their faith in a lot of ways.
Right.
They do that in several ways, and we don't have to get into every way in which they're different than Christianity and or culture, but the family way is, it seems like they're willing to sacrifice that some of the things that our culture say are important. Let's say an easy example would be a kid wants to join a sports team and he can't miss practice or he won't be on the team, right? A Mormon family who is required to have one night with the family game night, sometimes it gets called, would have to say, well, that gets in the way of our faith.
Right.
So I'm sorry, Johnny, but you cannot be on the football team, because it requires you to be there 5 nights or 6 nights a week, and we have family night, so you can't do that. Christians, in a lot of ways, I feel like probably should look more like that. There should be some things that as a family you just can't do because you've decided to spend time discipling your own children, growing closer together to God and to each other. So you can't just do everything that our society says is important for families to do, because where would there be room for Christianity?
Right. So I wanted to open with that one. I've got another one on the mind, which I gave a spoiler alert earlier on Facebook about, but we won't mention it yet.
Yeah. Right.
Let's see, Chris, was there anything, any group or type of person that Christians can learn from?
I have always, someone told me something once years ago. They said that all truth is God's truth.
Okay.
Right? Because if God is truth, then truth is God's. And so I kind of went looking around to see things I could find in other philosophies and kind of do exactly what we're doing here tonight. And one of the things I absolutely loved is the kind of the yin and yang, sort of. I mean, it's not a direct, there's a lot more to it than where I'm going with this. But in Eastern philosophies, this idea of balance.
Okay.
And I think it's something we see everywhere in nature, the way ecosystems work, and I think it's something that we, as Americans and American Christians, us specifically, I think it's easy for us to forget that life works better when you keep things in balance.
Right.
Whether it's work and time off or different things, and we're such a culture of
extremes.
Yeah, anything worth killing is worth overkilling.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
That's a good thought.
Yeah, so I really admire this idea, and also there's a certain a willingness to accept some of the harder things in life, like acknowledging
Okay.
that death is part of life.
With good
and
things comes hard
Right.
things, so those
And
aren't things
so
to shy away from.
It's in my mind, it's in some ways a more well-rounded view, and yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
No,
I
I
want
like
to
that.
emphasize here. I know you weren't saying this, but I want to say this clearly. What we're not trying to say is things Christianity is wrong about, and let's listen to a bunch of other people. So much as saying that everybody brings wisdom to life. Everybody is right about something, right? And in the
maybe.
case of what
Charles Manson, I'm not sure what he was right about, but
maybe-
hey,
he might-
you believe in something and you follow through.
he might have been a really great
It's too
cook.
soon. It's too soon.
But
okay.
But the idea is what you're saying is it's the balance, right? It's the balance
Yeah.
that we can learn from that. To recognize certain realities in life, to learn to live balanced with those realities. When you were saying what you were saying, I thought of Ecclesiastes, which famously talks about don't be too righteous in which you kill yourself, or too
Right.
evil either in which you destroy yourself. But find balance between those two things. Balance isn't the word it's used there. I'm summarizing. But that there's this there's balance even to religiosity,
Sure.
right? That there is such a thing as too much religion,
I think the phrase is so heavenly minded, you're no earthly good.
right?
Yeah. There's a lot of value in that. I remember when I was in ministry, it's kind of related, but it's there was a poster that the youth pastor put in his office. The longer you're in ministry, the more separated you become from the world.
Right.
So if you're too much in ministry and doing too much and involving yourselves in the only things in the ministry, then eventually you'll feel like you know nothing about the world and you're not effective as a pastor.
Well, yeah, and even in terms of balance, I ran into an old friend of my dad's, and my dad's a pastor 7 days a week, basically. And I told my dad, I said, hey, you need to call this guy because you don't spend enough time with people who think of you as Mike and not Pastor Mike. And sometimes it's easy, I think, when you have a mission in life and you have a purpose, to remember that you need to take some time off.
Right.
And you need
Yeah.
to take a break from, because pastors have a very serious and very important job to do.
Demanding job.
Yeah, and it is life and death in a spiritual sense, and unfortunately, it's often in a more physical sense too.
Yeah.
And so it's hard sometimes to justify taking time off.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that feeling of like, well, if I take a break, something bad could happen.
Right.
And you're just always on.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important as ministers to take that time and to have friends that don't see you as a pastor, and so to have more of a more even relationship in that sense.
Uh-huh. That's for sure. There's even value in that time off to connect with people. I remember a pastor at my last church, he didn't, this is not an alcohol debate or discussion. He didn't drink, really. I mean, he wasn't really opposed to it, but just didn't feel like as a pastor in the community, small community, he didn't really want opportunities for people to misunderstand why he was drinking. New neighbor moved into town and, noticed the guy drank and often not had parties. But anyways, I was at a housewarming party, and the pastor really wanted to go over with a six-pack. Like, he knew that this was the kind of guy that if he showed up with a six-pack and hung out and acted non-pastor-like, that it would connect with him.
Right.
But he just couldn't bring himself to do it because at that point he was kind of pretending. But he just wanted that moment that he could just not be a pastor because he knew that is what would connect with this guy. But couldn't bring himself to do that. But having balance in his life would have been an opportunity. Having maybe practiced more balance throughout his ministry,
Right.
would have been able to really overcome that barrier. For me, I think Christians can learn a lot from Apple or Geico or Samsung in the way that they
Put out
kind of
products
market.
that are overly priced.
No, the way that they just are marketing with quality.
Yeah.
One of my favorite blogs a long time ago was Jesus Needs New PR. It was a blog or a Facebook post, a
He's
page
dying out there.
of really
He'll be
bad.
back.
It showed pictures of really bad Christian marketing and Christian public communication, outward
I mean, what
communication.
can 30 pieces of silver buy you?
I'm sure I had all those Christian T-shirts when I was a kid.
Yeah, a lot of the blog Christian News Needs New PR was like church signs, right? Just really offensive church signs on on the road about people turning and burning, things like that.
Coming of judgment.
Yeah, really bad Christian music concerts and things like that. In a lot of ways, Jesus does need new PR.
A lot of it's angry or vapid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think whatever is loudest gets most attention, and loudest is often offensive just because it's so loud.
Yeah.
One of my passions is communications, and I'm getting a degree in communications from a Christian college. I have every intention to stay in ministry because I really think the church, a big C church, needs to do a lot better at communicating the most important message in the world, and that is the gospel. We think that church main job to communicate is to preach on Sunday mornings. If that's the case, then who are we leaving mass communication to?
Yeah.
In the past, we leave it to churches. We leave it to churches with lots of money who can afford a television show, and then that becomes the Christian message that gets mass communicated,
Yeah.
or Christian extremists who get picked up on the news. I think the local church should be responsible for marketing to its local market, its neighborhoods, its families, and do that in a really quality, within their means, a quality way that communicates the truths of God's love, grace, and hope, the same way that Christ would communicate if he was here and had all the tools that we now have to communicate.
Building on that thought, it just occurred to me while I was listening to you how bad of a job we're doing of permeating the Bible itself, right?
What do you mean?
Well, okay, the Bible gets around in text,
Uh-huh.
right? Printed text and electronic text. Of course, nobody reads anymore, right? Or very, it's a skill on the decline.
Yeah, 100 characters or less.
Right.
Maybe.
So obviously, the Bible is not going to. And I'm not saying biblical principles. I'm not saying religious beliefs. I'm saying the Bible text, the Bible words.
Right.
They're not going to be properly spread anymore through means of paper, and
Okay.
not even PDF.
Ebook.
Right, not even ebook. And I guess there's audiobook, and
Right.
I've heard some pretty interesting audiobooks out there of the Bible, where Samuel L. Jackson, for example, is the voice of God.
I listen to a Bible audiobook all the time.
And that's
Johnny
pretty
Cash recorded one.
right, and that's pretty interesting. Like I can get down with that. That concept of
Is
bringing
there
it to
a
audio.
Twitter bot that tweets the Bible?
Really?
I don't know. I'm asking. I assume there is.
Oh.
I'm
Okay.
sure.
If there isn't, I'll get right to work on this.
But
Good idea.
As long as you're not following a particular translation like NRSV or NIV, the Bible is open to use. So why isn't there more interesting and creative ways of communicating the biblical text permeating pop and internet culture? And what
Right.
would that look like? I'm not so sure.
Russell Crowe's Noah.
Right. But that's not really the biblical text, right?
Right.
I mean, using like YouTube, for example, to present the text itself,
Okay.
present the content of the Bible itself in a new creative way,
Right.
or using podcasts to act it out the way This American Life acts out their stories,
Right.
and things that I can't think of because I'm not the right guy to be in charge of this mission. But I'm surprised there isn't. I'm not saying remaking it in movie format or remaking it in our own version, but actually getting the text itself out
Right.
there in new and different ways.
Yeah, I think we're really falling behind. If Gutenberg kind of set the example for, well, he didn't really create it, but for leveraging a emerging technology to spread the gospel or spread the biblical text, then in the internet age, we've already missed it in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Why isn't there the most awesome website ever for just getting to experience the Bible?
Right. In an immersive, interactive way.
Just an incredible.
Maybe we need to get on
There
a
are some
VR
great
Bible.
websites where you can look up a verse and, it goes. You just click next to go to the next chapter.
Okay.
But you can look up a verse. You can change whatever translation you want.
Yeah.
You can
Like
click
Bible
on
Gateway or
yeah,
something
you
like that,
can
Bible Gateway.
click on something and you get different commentaries from different people.
Yeah. No, I have those. I mean something that's kind of using more creative juices in the sense that
But I mean, it's still text. I don't really understand.
He doesn't
Where
know.
you're
I don't
getting
think
at.
James knows what it's going to be. He just wishes there was something
I mean, at the
other
end of
than
the day, text is kind of text, isn't it?
but I mean, for example, we've all seen like poetry put to video, right? Where it was still the old poem, but the way it gets read, the way the text appears on the screen creatively.
Well, there's people doing that. There's a guy, a composer. He
Okay.
composed his own suite for the creation story, and he made a YouTube video with some animations, and then he just overlaid all the text from the creation story.
Okay, and that's a great example. But what I'm saying is, like, shouldn't we be seeing that in greater?
Have you seen
permeation?
the Bible app, YouVersion? But have you seen the kids Bible app from YouVersion?
No.
It's an interactive cartoon story of a lot of the stories in the Bible, and it reads the text. It's literally I don't want to say cartoon. It feels more like comic. I mean, the characters don't move; they're there, and they almost have like speech bubbles. But some of the different parts of the landscape are clickable, almost for fun.
It's like
you
a
click-
digital felt board.
Yeah, yeah. But the kids like if you click on like the woman carrying the pot, she's like, "Oh," and she almost drops it or something like that. You know. But you click
So
next.
you get to
and
mess with people.
well, yeah, different things like that, and or you click on the bush and like a squirrel comes out, you know, and it just repeats that same thing, but it's interactive.
Yeah.
It feels like a kid's game app that they might be used to, and you click the page and it kind of turns the page, and you get a whole new scene of the Bible story that you get to
Okay.
interact with.
Let's follow up on this because we're going off topic, but for another religion topic, either next week or maybe a week or two.
What are
ahead,
some of those things?
Let's find some of those awesome things that were only affordable because of the age of the internet
Great,
and apps and things like that.
that's a great idea.
Continuing on, things that we could learn from others. I would say Christians could learn a lot, and I say jokingly football fans, but you could really say sports fans. When you're in the room of a true football fan, you know it, right? You know it. No
Goodness.
words need to be spoken. The person exudes football.
They're wearing at least one item per day
Yeah.
that represents their team.
They exude their team. They're passionate for their team's future. They know their team's history. They're interested in what's happening in their team right now.
Uh-huh.
And they have great hopes for what their team is going to achieve this year.
Can you imagine a church fan like counting the baptisms? Like,
Yeah.
man, last year our baptism rate was 214 people. This year we're on record to set more baptisms than any church in this region has done since 1964, when the church down the street, First Christian whatever.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be funny.
I've had friends who were followed various teams, and they would spend their vacation time going to away games that were important for the team.
Right.
And there's this sense, and I'm saying football fans, but really just all sports fans of a certain quality, that they are immersed completely in the glory of their team. That's what it is. They've tapped into the glory of their team, and they've let that glory overwhelm them in the way they dress, and the way they speak, and what they hope for, and what they
Spending
study,
time
and what they
money.
know, and where their passions go. And by the way, that is real worship, right?
I think you're
And-
touching on a very sensitive subject, though, James.
yeah, and I'm not trying to. I'm not. This isn't to now next say like bad for you football players. What I'm saying is, I really wish.
You can say that.
But what I really want to say is bad on you Christians for not looking like that.
Yeah.
Like, why is it that I can't be in the same room and know that I stand next to somebody who exudes Christianity and Christ-likeness?
Because as a
and
culture, we've
faith?
accepted sports fans, but we don't seem to accept
we
religious
accept them,
fans.
but
We call them terrorists or
We
fanatics.
make them all just hang out with each other. Like the rest of us all avoid them, right?
Well, this is an interesting pet peeve, and Josh would know this because we've been in ministry together for a long time. One of my pet peeves is just, I don't want to offend anyone, so I'm going to be very careful when I say this, James, but
All right.
people in full-time ministry who are sports fanatics and in ministry, in church, spend more time talking about sports than about not sports. Chris probably knows some of the people
I've
that I'm
known
referring
ministers who cut the time of the service to make room for the Super Bowl.
Well, I mean,
Come on, that is not a good thing.
Chris probably knows of a church I'm thinking of where 2/3 of the pastor's office is when you walk in. Two of the pastors at this church, and all have just tons of sportsmen, but all in their office and on the wall.
Well, part of that is because I know what you're talking about, but like some of them I knew people would buy them that because they knew they liked it.
Okay.
You know, and so they end up with a whole bunch of
A collection.
stuff. Yeah, it's like maybe they mentioned it in passing once. Oh yeah, I kind of like this or that, and then people want to do something nice for their pastor.
Yeah,
Sure.
And they see.
I'm not saying that they're fanatics, but it's interesting to see a culture of that is common in a lot of churches.
You know who else does this a lot? It's marijuana enthusiasts.
What,
Have you ever been
yeah.
around one? They are
Yeah.
more evangelical than evangelicals.
Oh, for sure, for
Right,
sure.
right.
They think, in the same way that we think that Jesus can change people's lives, they think marijuana can change people's lives.
Yes.
yeah.
They found the answer.
Absolutely.
They've found truth.
And they're willing
And
to
the
talk
gospel.
about it. They're
Yeah.
willing to talk about it. And I don't just mean talking about it. I just mean being fully immersed
They're
and
advocating
unashamed.
for it.
And-
Okay. You want to know why? We're really bad at this is because they can share a really well-made documentary on marijuana, and then we go on Facebook and we have to share a really bad
We have
viral.
Kirk Cameron.
Yeah, where is the quality marketing that we can
Where's our-
wear or share?
Where's our
or,
Food Inc?
Yeah, that's right. Yes,
Yeah,
Man.
and just like to talk
Five
to
Iron Frenzy T-shirt. This is quality. This is quality Christian propaganda right here.
yeah. There are
They're a good
people.
band.
There are people
Yeah,
in
they're good.
churches who are good Christians. I would say they're well-meaning people. They really believe. I'm not trying to attack their faith, but they will spend a large quantity of their life very enthusiastically, and that's fine, understanding everything about the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, a local baseball team here, know all those stats histories, know everything, the minutia, be well deep into the minutia of being an Angels fan,
Right.
and man, couldn't even tell you what century Jesus lived in.
Right.
They could tell you like the year, down the month maybe in some cases when certain events happened in their team.
Right.
Don't know anything about Christian history or tradition. They know they love Jesus. They read the Bible here and
Or
there.
how many times have they shared the gospel?
Right.
Yeah.
Guys, we're getting out hustled by potheads.
I think that's Chris's who we can learn from. That is a very valid point, though. I think both of you guys bring up, and I've said this about potheads. If that's just a term we'll just use to say enthusiast. I've said when they find, I say this in a negative way, referring to
We'll call them Tom Petties.
they think they've found the meaning of life, and they go after that full force. I say that in a sad way because I don't think marijuana or drugs are the meaning of life, but they've found the answer to all the things in life that have made them sad, that have made them question the purpose for living. They found it in marijuana, and every single one of them either wants to grow it or vote for it to be legalized or share it or let others experience it or evangelize it. And that's a false god. But I see what you're saying. I mean, we should also, once we find the Christianity, or those of us who have found it, shouldn't we also share that as the true meaning of life?
Yeah.
No.
Any others we want to add to this conversation before we wrap it night?
Nah, nothing else in
That's
my
good.
mind at the moment.
That's good.
All right. Well, then we'll stop there, maybe, Gary.
Yep. Well, thanks for tuning in on one of our most important sections, talking about religion topics and Christianity and faith. If you have any more things that you'd like to share that you think Christians can learn from, different ideas, other religions, other organizations, please share those things here on the YouTube comments, or if you're listening to this on podcast, you can find us on Facebook. Search in Faith and Whatever and find our page. It'd be a great place to share that. Just last week, we posted a Facebook Live video talking about this segment. You can go ahead and respond to that video if you'd like, and include some of your other areas, other ways you think Christians can experience and learn from. And thanks for tuning in.